O'Reilly comes from the same kind of background, so I don't dislike him in that sense. I mean, he's an unusual guy to get along with. He's kind of distant, and he's he worries about who's going to use him. He's on the top of his game, is number one in cable and all the rest of it. But I kind of sympathize with him, but I disagree with him on everything. And this particular day or evening, he was really scapegoating illegal immigrants for everything an illegal immigrant did. He was talking about. This particular night, it was a drunk driver who killed 2 kids in Virginia. It was a tragic story. But there were 350 other drunk driving fatalities in Virginia that year, and it was the first one we were talking about. And that was part of a pattern, the scapegoating of this very vulnerable class that really it led me to write this book. And
well, the book is called Hispanic. I'm reading it as Hispanic. It's Hispanic, but it's white.
Hispanic is the way I say it too.
Right. It's like when people break down history into history. It's about why Americans fear Hispanics in the U.S. Is it like, because my problem with immigration is not that Hispanics are coming here. I only ask that people try to immigrate legally and just try to kind of assimilate into the culture a little bit. Like when you look at Asians are very, very they speak English to each other. It's like that's all I kind of ask, that people attempt to kind of assimilate into what we do here.
There are many millions of Chinese who are here illegally. They're the second largest group, so everybody wants to get here. That's a fact of life. And to me, if you want to talk about illegal immigration, that's okay. I mean, it's a real social issue, and I totally get it. But you don't blame them for all the crime, the disease, the terror, the stealing jobs when the facts don't support that. And you don't show a Mexican jumping over a fence every time you're doing it. It's like it's like me on Al Capone and Opie and Anthony on the various church sects and things. It's after a while, it's a stereotype, and after a while, it conveys a very negative message that is, at its heart, racial.
So you're saying that in a way that if they're going to show the fence jumping from Mexico,
show the Irish bartender, show the European au pair, show the other people who are here illegally, the
shipping containers full of Asians.
The people who knocked down 9/11 all came on student or tourist visas that they overstayed. They were all from Saudi Arabia. Why did the Mexicans take the rap for 9/11? It's just not right.
Do you think that they should do something with immigration just to make sure that the process is followed legally?
Yes, and I think that John McCain and Ted Kennedy had a good bill. Bush, the best thing he ever did in his presidency, the only thing that I think that is universally applauded, at least by my crowd, it was the immigration reform bill that was defeated last year. It had border security, which is a good idea. You got to secure the borders to have a sovereign nation. But it also had a way to normalize the existence of everyone in this room knows illegal immigrants, or they mow your lawn, or they babysit your kid, or they wash the dish in the bar or the restaurant you go to. They deliver you pizza. They drive the livery cab. Everybody knows that the situation exists. You got to get these people out of the shadows. Get them so they can pay taxes, so they, the kids can, have a life where that ICE agents aren't going to be smashing in your door at 2 in the morning.
So are you for an amnesty then?
Basically, yeah, I am basically. But when you say that word, it automatically turns off people immediately.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, what I prefer is to say an earned path to citizenship. Let them come to the Walmart parking lot. You take their picture, you take their fingerprints, you do a criminal background check, you find out who they are. So first of all, you do your inventory on who's here. Then you give them some kind of visa, some kind of legal visa where they could have a job, where they can pay taxes, and have a normal existence. And then if Congress or the American people want to give them a path to become American citizens, that's fine. My whole beef right now is that these people are living in terror, and it ebbs and flows depending on the political whim. It's being driven, this savage anti-immigration movement is being driven by the most egregious talk radio campaign, even much worse than Bill Clinton and Monica Lewinsky and impeachment. This is the worst thing that ever happened on talk radio.
Can I tell you the thing that bothers people the most? I think, at least personally me, it is a feeling that people who come don't want to. It's so stupid, but to learn English and
that's not true.
I'm just telling you, that's the vibe people get.
But I'm saying
a lot of people do not speak the language.
My dad is one of 17 children from Puerto Rico. 17 children.
Wow.
Same mother, same father. My dad came in 1937, and he, during the Depression, he got he really got discriminated against in every kind of way. Every one of the 17, my 16 aunts and uncles, Everyone in my generation speaks English.
Older generation,
everyone.
Absolutely.
The problem is that our children, or even us sometimes, don't speak Spanish. Every survey showed that the Mexicans are learning English at the same rate as any other immigrant group that came before.
But when you hit the phone, I mean, and I understand that's a decision big business makes because they want. But when you pick up the phone, it's like press 1 for English, press 2 for Spanish. I mean, you don't see that with other nationalities or other languages.
What's the big deal about that? What are you going to be? If you touch 2 by mistake, is your finger going to rot? I mean, I don't understand. What the
no
big
one minds
deal is.
choices, but the thing
This
is,
is New York City.
Yeah, but it's all over the country, and it's also being done to make it so people don't have to learn English. That's the key. It's not about.
I'm saying every survey shows they're learning English at the same or faster rate than any other, than the Irish, the Germans, the Italians, the European Jews that came, the Asians you spoke of. You go to Brown University, you see a graduation. A guy might look like he works in a Chinese restaurant. His kid is the valedictorian of the graduating class. You know, that's just the immigrant social mobility that happens, has happened, will happen. The Hispanics aren't the last group. There'll be some, I don't know, Pacific Islanders or, Central Africans will be coming next.
But do you think that it's the more that you make it comfortable for people in any language to not learn the language, the less likely they'll be to learn it just because they can live a very comfortable and productive life not knowing it?
But I'm telling you that if you could find me a second-generation Hispanic immigrant who doesn't speak English, I'll give you $100. I'll give you $100 right
Second generation, you mean? I'm not sure.
My generation.
Okay. I'm not talking about older, because I think with older, it's like, again, the Italians came over, they had to learn it.
No, I'm saying that the children of immigrants, you go to Miami. Miami is a place where Spanish-speaking people are extremely comfortable in a Spanish world. Mm-hmm. The number 1 rated TV shows, the number 1 rated radio shows, the best restaurants, the best clubs, some of the best condos. You go there. Invariably, those young people speak English. They eat Big Macs. They watch MTV. They listen to Opie and Anthony. They don't exist, and they speak Spanish to their parents. That's just the way it's always been. That's the way it'll always be.
Okay, so you don't think that there's like a larger group of, say, people coming in from Mexico or Spanish immigrants who don't speak English than any other nationality?
I think there's a larger group coming in from Mexico than anything since the Irish. The only thing that matches this exceptional immigration is when the 650,000 Irish came in 2 years to New York City, doubled the population of New York in 2 years, and instantly became the second largest ethnic group. And they had the same exact reaction, the nativist, know nothing. These people are here to undermine. They're speaking that wretched Gaelic. They want to. The Catholic Church is going to subvert the real church. It was the same. You could read the headlines from the 1846. It could be 2008. And I just think that if people just cool down, put it in the historic context, give facts a chance as opposed to the hysteria from talk radio and from cable news. I think
we can only live our own experience though. Like I don't personally, my experience on a day-to-day basis, and this is everywhere I travel, is that I am much more likely to encounter people who are speaking Spanish that don't understand English than any other language. Like I don't meet.
In what context?
Whether you're in a store or you're having something delivered.
You go to a store and the guy doesn't speak English? Come on.
You've gone to bodegas where people hardly speak English, of course. You've gone to bodegas, people don't comprehend.
You shop at a bodega?
Well, I don't say I buy my lawn furniture there, but you're acting like it's crazy for me to say that we encounter a lot of Spanish people that don't speak English. And it's not crazy to say, and in our common experience, we know that that's not crazy to say.
But how does that, why does that, assuming that's true, and I'll take you at your word, what's the problem?
Because, again, that's one of the resentments people have is that
But why do you have resentment? Why?
I'm explaining to you. Because you want people to come here and assimilate into the culture that you have here. That's all it is. And that's why I said it's not about people being Spanish or not wanting
So
Spanish
you don't think
here.
that the child of that person in the bodega that you could not communicate with, which I think is a little, I don't know, I could communicate with everybody. Well, of course I speak Spanish. You don't think that their kid will be speaking English?
It depends on how easy it's made for him to not speak English. In certain places...
Well, like I said, I'd pay you if you find a kid born here or even a young person brought in here who doesn't speak English, because I don't see it anywhere.
In Los Angeles, there's huge groups of people that speak very, very minimal English.
Their parents, and their grandparents.
But they're not attempting. It's almost like it's acceptable.
But see, that's a stereotype. Where does that come from?
The truth. Stereotypes are based on truth.
But from your experience, how much time you spend hanging out in East L.A., really?
Well, not a tremendous amount of time. I'm only going by my own experience. But it's like I'm not the only one having this experience. It's not like Jim Norton is just saying this. It's a tremendous amount of people who are kind of reacting the same way.
That the vast majority of people who have the most virulent anti-immigration sentiment have never even seen an illegal immigrant, much less had a negative experience.
But you're saying that everyone deals with them. You're saying that every one of us deals with them. You're saying that in one breath, some people have never dealt with illegals, and you're saying that every one of us deals with them on a daily basis.
Well, and you go to Los Angeles, there's scarcely a baby cared for, a lawn mowed, a dish washed in a restaurant or a bar or a factory where a shirt is sewed except by an illegal immigrant.
And I'm not saying...
They're contributing more to the economy, every study shows, than they take away from the economy. That's the reality.
See, and again, I'm not even disagreeing with that. It is simply... People see it becoming much more acceptable. Hit 2 for Spanish. And you're like, why does that matter? Instead of saying, you know what, that's correct, that does kind of make it a lot easier for people to not... Because if you have one country, it's a little bit easier if everybody kind of has a common language and a common culture.
Hit 2 for Spanish. First of all, those are private companies.
I know.
They do that because they want to make money.
Absolutely.
They do it to make money because this is a good market for them. That's why, you get radio stations that are converting to Spanish language because they make money. Spanglish is huge.
Right.
Here in town. The
It's the number one station.
Yeah, two of them, 2 of the top 3 or 4.
Yeah.
No one's debating that it's a big business decision. Of course, I'm not saying that it's not, but there's a need for it. I mean, that's why they're doing it. I mean, if it was to speak a language that nobody here speaks, they wouldn't do it because it wouldn't make sense. But obviously, there's a huge market for that.
I just think that what everybody has to do is cool your jets, like I told O'Reilly that night. Stop the scapegoating. A study came out last Monday that you never would see on cable news or here on talk radio. It was a study by the Public Policy Institute of California. It showed Mexican immigrants between 18 and 40 were 8 times less likely to commit crimes and be incarcerated than citizens. You will never see that study anywhere. 8 times less likely. It's because the images that these people, because of phony stories by people like Lou Dobbs, they're bringing in leprosy, they're raping our children, they're eating our sandwiches, it just goes on and on and on. I'm the only person speaking in their favor.
And I'm not even disagreeing with anything you're saying on that. I am saying that...
You're disagreeing with everything I'm saying.
No, I haven't mentioned...
You haven't agreed with one thing I said.
I haven't mentioned crime. I haven't said anything about... how I didn't say amnesty was wrong. I didn't say get people out there ruining the country. I am only saying, not at all. You're pinning me with O'Reilly, and that's not the point I'm making. I'm only saying that one of the resentments people have, or the main issue for me, is you just want to feel like when people come here, they come here through a legal process, and they kind of assimilate to and attempt to learn the language and the culture. And you're saying that that's not true. They all speak English, and I'm saying that a common experience dictates that that's not the truth.
I did not say they all speak English. I said they are learning English at the same or faster rate than any other previous immigrant group, and I'm also saying that every previous immigrant group had the same kind of thing said about them. That's all I'm saying. This is part of a historic process.
But then you're saying
we are
it's
a nation
racist,
of immigrants.
But you're saying it's racist, though. If every group has that happen,
if you show a Mexican every time you're talking about, you ever watch Lou Dobbs? Do you ever see these programs?
No. I don't
you got to watch these every time. There's not a single night, and I talked to Dobbs yesterday. There's not a single night where you don't see a picture of a Mexican climbing over that damn fence. Not one night. And the FBI released the study on the spike in violent crime last year. There was a spike in violent crime. They led on CNN with the news that violent crime has spiked, obviously tied to the wave of illegal immigration, even though the FBI never mentioned immigration in their study. And in fact, the cities that had the spike in violent crime, St. Louis, Detroit, Cleveland, Philadelphia, had 0 or almost no immigration, illegal or otherwise.
So you're saying it's blacks? do you I'm kidding, but do you think people do you're right about one thing. Is I'm not saying you're saying that people make it a racial issue every time, but don't you think sometimes that when people raise legitimate issues about the immigration, that race is fallen back on as an excuse instead of addressing?
I don't think so. Listen.
You're saying that race is
you read that book, you read those emails that I've got. I'm a person who's been on television now for almost 40 years. In some ways, and I say this, I'm like Big Pens. You don't think of Scandinavia or France when you hear Big Pens, or Legos. You don't think of Scandinavia. Toyota, you don't think of Japan. Geraldo, you don't necessarily think of Hispanic or Puerto Rican. It's just I've been around so long that I have like a generic brand. I'm just Geraldo. And yet I won't even say you have to bleep out with the language, but the turd in the toilet bowl, why don't you go back home to... I was born on 17th Street. They want me to go back home to where? What, the Lower East Side? That's not... It is racist in its content. The most vehement and virulent of the language is racially based. You don't. It is inevitable. And when you read it, Lou Dobbs, the #1 guy on the the hate mongering groups websites. They're all listening. The KKK has made a tremendous comeback since the year 2000. You know, the Minutemen now. You think the Minutemen would be so outraged? Mabel, let's go. We got to stop these illegal immigrants. The Swedes are coming in from Canada. You know, call the FBI, call the CIA, call the NHL. You know, you've got to stop these Swedes. You know, it's just not going to happen. It is because there is a browning process going on. The country is changing demographically. There are more Hispanics. There were 4 million in 1950. Now there's 45 million. That's what this is really.
But how is it racist if it's a process? I know we have to take a break. If every group goes through this process, how is it racist if it's a part of the process that every group has gone through?
I'm just telling you the reaction, the real-life, real-world reaction. You can say that in your heart of hearts it has nothing to do with the fact that they have brown skin, that they look different, but I think that at its heart, that's what's going on here. It's who we are as a nation and the fear that the nation is changing.
All right, well, I'm telling you that's not where I'm coming from.
Good.
At all.
Good. That's
Geraldo,
why you're going to give me breakfast here.
You got to come back. You got to come back because, unfortunately, we've run out of time.
It was fun.
We just scratched the surface.
He was your hitman today?
Well, I didn't even know it was going that way, to be honest with you. And it's fine. It's a good discussion. It's a great discussion.
I don't want to bum out your audience.
No, you kidding me? They're loving it. They're loving it, actually.
I just want to know why the passion for Hispanics when you're obviously Jerry Rivers, the Jewish guy that changed his name. When did you first hear of that rumor?
Wait, did you ever read Urban Legends? And
Yeah. Snopes.com has it on there.
It's been disproven so many times, and yet. You know what it is? It is a way for wimpy guys, little dick wimpy guys, to attack someone who they know could eat them for lunch.
Hey, we have to take a break. Geraldo Rivera, Hispanic or Hispanic? Why Americans fear Hispanics in the U.S.?
Thank you.
What's the answer to that question, by the way?
Why? I just said.
Just kidding.
We ran through that one.
The great Geraldo Rivera.
Please come back, and we'll talk about this and other things.
It's a lot of fun.
We have so much that we want to talk to you about, but we're running out of show today.
Invite me back.
All right, we will do that. But first, I just got to do this for you.
It seems, at least up to now that we've struck out with the Bulls, I'm disappointed about that, as I'm sure you are. I promised all the critics that if we didn't find anything, I'd sing a song. So, Chicago, that Holland town. All right, I'm going. I'll see you.
The great Geraldo Rivera, everyone. Opie and Anthony.
Thank you very much.